maybe the most embarrassing year that any franchise has had. When you in the NFL, when you factor in within 10 months, you trade away a top 3 wide receiver. And
wait, back up. You bungled the GM hire. Don't forget that.
That's true.
They bungled the GM hire.
That's right.
So Bill O'Brien had to be the acting general manager. Go ahead.
That's true. They bungled the GM role. They trade away one of the top 3 wide receivers in his prime. You get 60 cents on the dollar. You got absolutely fleeced. By the way, J.J. Watt, I can make a case it might be time for him to move on anyway, but he's your franchise icon. He's, $40 million for charitable endeavors. The guy's been a beast in the community. He's a first conversation, first ballot, however you want to frame it, Hall of Famer. He asked for his release. He's gone. And now, of course, we're on the doorstep of Deshaun Watson maybe being relocated. You can't have a worse year if you tried.
No, you can't. And let's not forget that the season was horrendous.
That's right. That was kind of implied, but yeah.
Implied, and Bill O'Brien gets fired, and just never felt like this. They played hard. I got to give them some credit. They played hard, and they were never an easy out. But a lot of that was because Deshaun Watson is Deshaun Watson, and he led the league in passing yardage, and he was amazing in the role that he found himself in, even though he was unhappy because of all the things that were going on around him. And I want to give the Texans the benefit of the doubt. I want to give them the belief that this is part of a plan and they're just not letting us in on the plan. But when you alienate, first of all, your stalwart who you're talking about, BT, and J.J. Watt, who at the end of the season basically said, and we all heard it because he put his arms around Deshaun Watson and said, sorry for wasting one of your years. I mean, it's a little quote at the moment, but think of how damning that is, right, to the franchise and how hard home that likely hit with Deshaun Watson. And so it was no surprise that a few short weeks later, we started hearing these inclinations that, first of all, that J.J. Watt was going to ask for his release, which he ultimately did, and it has now been granted, but that Deshaun Watson was going to, say, look, my best interests aren't being addressed here, and I'm a young player. I know that there's some building that needs to be done around here, but I don't trust this organization to do it what's right for me, and that's really hard to do after you pay a guy that much money.
By the way, left something out here, Teak. They're also $14 million over the cap right now.
Lovely. And no draft picks, by the way. And no draft picks.
So Cam McNair, here's what he said today. This was after the announcement with J.J. Watt. And he said, there's a lot of misinformation out there. I'll leave it at that. Today we want to focus on J.J., but Deshaun's our quarterback. He's a Texan. And we expect him to remain a Texan, and we'll leave it at that. This on the heels of multiple reports throughout the week trickling in that they're pretty, locked in. They've drawn their line in the sand that they have no intentions to trade Deshaun Watson, which I still don't believe because I think it's just, you get to a point in a business relationship or a personal relationship where it becomes untenable. And it certainly has that feel, and it's had that feel for a while. The one thing that I don't agree with, and I know some people are trying to play this angle, and anything for clicks, I get it. This is not the same thing. Like, I saw one thing today. It was on Pro Football Talk, right? And they basically tried to, almost, I'll find it after because I don't want to misrepresent their point, but I remember reading it and saying, this is garbage. This makes no sense to me. Where they're trying to equivocate, what's going on, how quickly they allowed, J.J. Watt to hit the door and basically to get his wish. And they're, kind of, and these aren't their words, I want to be fair, like sticking it to Deshaun Watson. It's handled totally differently. One guy is basically broken down.
Yeah.
And he's 90% through a Hall of Fame career in terms of being a productive snap-to-snap difference maker. The other guy's 25, just signed an extension, just entering his prime, one of the 5 or 6 best quarterbacks on the planet. So that's not the same.
No, it's
but
not.
But people are trying to make it out to be, and I think that that's wrong.
Well, they're trying to make it because of the names, because those are the two names that you think about when you think about the Houston Texans. It's J.J. Watt, who was a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, but over the last 5 years, BT, he's missed a bunch of games. In 2016, he only played 3. The subsequent year, he only played 5. He played 16 back in 2018, and he had 16 sacks that season, and so that was a good year for him. But the last couple of years, his sack totals have been minuscule. Only 8 games in 2019, 4 sacks. He played all 16 games this year, but he only had 5 sacks, and so we laud him because he was the best defensive player of that decade, BT. There's no doubt about it. The 2010s, I guess we would call it, because he won the MVP and defensive MVP in 2012, 2014, and 2015. And he was dominant, right? You feared J.J. Watt for a long time. But at this point,
must watch.
It was must watch. No doubt about it. It's absolutely right, because he was dominant, and you knew he was coming, and you'd still try to double him and do whatever. He was Aaron Donald on the outside, right? And so, but at this point in his career, he just doesn't have that anymore, right? He's still a good player. He's still good against the run. Has a few tackles for loss, all those good things that you talk about when you talk about a reliable and sturdy defensive end. But he's not the dominant player. So letting him go and saving what was it, $720-something million in salary this year and no dead money? I mean, and he wanted to go. That's a no-brainer. That's an easy.
Hey, JJ, thanks for doing us the favor, pal.
Exactly right.
Appreciate it.
That's exactly right. Now we don't have to cut you because we feel like you've started to underperform, and we're unpopular again with our fan base.
Well, they're still unpopular.
Of
so
course,
I don't know
but
that
they would be doubly
anything.
unpopular.
Yeah.
But think
Can it get worse though? Can it get worse? I mean,
if
right
you cut
now,
J.J. Watt, BT.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, say August, you cut J.J. Watt before the season starts and Deshaun Watson's still not in camp. It probably gets doubly worse. But I agree with you, BT. It probably, perceptually, it's hard to get lower than where they are right now.
They're low. Here's the tweet, by the way. It's from Pro Football Talk about 5 or 6 hours ago, and it says, Deshaun Watson asks to be traded. Crickets. J.J. Watt asked to be released, with the team getting nothing in return from immediate compliance. No, they did get something in return. You just mentioned the finances there,
yes.
Which for a team that before today was roughly $14 million on the wrong side of the salary cap. That's just a weak tweet right there.
Agreed.
And I love their work. I know Chris Sims. You know him very well.
Of course.
I love Chris. I don't know Florio. I know you know him a little bit. I don't think that you're a big fan. I don't want to put words in your mouth. I don't know Mike. I know he stirs it a little bit, which is part of the reason why they get a ton of tweets. I'm on their website every day. I check in.
But this is what it
that's
sounds
an
like.
irresponsible. Not even irresponsible. That's a very misleading that's an unnecessary tweet because there's nothing that really connects the two. Again, one's 25, just entering his prime, plays the most important position on the field, just signed the contract. The other guy is 31, aging, a decaying. A decaying commodity for sure. He wants out. You get a little salary cap relief.
Yep.
It's a no-brainer.
$17.5 million to be.
Yeah, not a little. It's not like you get $2 million.
Yeah.
You get almost $20 million.
Yep. And by the way, that probably puts them back in the positive territory, in the black as it pertains to the salary cap.
It does, Teak, because the article that I referenced, that was Pro Football Focus did a whole write-up on from 1 through 32.
Yeah.
In terms of cap space, free agents, what targets should be, who teams should retain. Everything. A terrific, all-encompassing overview of every team going into the offseason. And I guess it was written maybe 2 or 3 days ago, and that's where their number was 14-ish, 14.9 over the cap. That's before J.J. was sent packing, that he got the release that he wanted. So, listen, it's whether or not J.J. Watt was still going to wreck a game, and we know that he's not, that's almost beside the point. It just seems like it seems like everybody's like in a pit. Like they think of Gilligan's Island, like when they would get trapped, right? And first of all, I don't know how they didn't get out of some of the things they found themselves in, but it seems so benign. Like had he not climbed out of this little tiny hole that they stick straw and coconuts on top of, but they didn't, or jail that you could snap like bamboo sticks, like they're stuck in jail.
Because then you wouldn't watch the show.
Well, that's true. Well, we'd watch it for Marianne and Ginger anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
We'd still watch. But I think that that's the imagery. It's like guys are trying to like climb out of this ditch to get the hell out of there.
Yeah. Yeah, and
they want out.
They want out because it feels like the organization is not going anywhere. Now that may just be our reactionary take. And again, I don't know that maybe Nick Caserio and this front office, maybe they have a plan. Maybe they have this all thought out, and they're just waiting for the opportunity to have a conversation with Deshaun Watson and lay it out in front of him, and maybe he changes his mind. And that's why they're holding on to this idea, this thought that Deshaun Watson is not going to go anywhere. Because, I mean unless you've heard otherwise, but I haven't, I don't think they've talked to him yet. And so
he hasn't returned their calls.
Exactly. And so
that's not good.
They can't know definitively that Deshaun Watson is going to look at whatever they present to him, and he's going to say, yeah, that still doesn't work. I still want out of here.
But doesn't it equate to, now again, you and I got married before, everybody's like, well, I mean, there was obviously text messages, but imagine just texting somebody incessantly, will you go out with me? Can I take you to, and she never responds, or he never responds ever. Deshaun Watson hasn't responded once.
That's a good point.
Kind of tells you where his head is. But I will say this, because you bring up a good point about Caserio. And this is just based on the history of watching the league, talking about the league, knowing the league, you living the league, and obviously talking and watching and knowing the league now as a broadcaster. Like we have this ability to position things too often in an overly favorable manner, and oftentimes it falls short of that.
Yeah.
But we also have this innate ability to, really, bury and paint the bleakest of pictures pertaining to a multitude of situations. And I think your instincts are right. Like Caserio, first of all, he definitely has a plan. Every executive has a plan. Whether or not the plan is, adhered to and eventually well executed, we'll find out. But I don't, as we reflect back in 3 years or 2 years on the Texans, whether they keep or trade Watson, I don't think it's going to be nearly as bad as it feels right now.
No, I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right.
As crazy as that sounds.
No, because they're not horribly run. Clearly, they're not, because they won a bunch of division titles over the last few years, and We felt. 2 years ago, BT, not this past season, the year before, they were in the championship or the divisional round, and so they were
up on the Chiefs.
That's right, by 24.
Yeah,
they were up big.
And
so was that the champ? I think that was the championship round, wasn't it?
That was
no. The Titans were in the championship.
That was divisional too.
Yeah,
Titans
so it was
were
divisional
the conference
round.
Championship.
So at the end of the day, you got to believe that they know how to run a football team, and they know how to bring in good personnel. They know how to do all of those things. It just hasn't been so clearly executed the last year and a half. Now, the easy scapegoat here, BT, is Bill O'Brien. You gave Bill O'Brien executive power. He used it incorrectly, even though a lot of people say that he was forced to use it incorrectly. We'll never know the true answer to that. Or maybe we will some point down the line. But he became the scapegoat. And it was only 3 or 4 weeks into the season where you're kind of saying, Bill O'Brien's not going to make it. This isn't going to work out well for him. And usually when you fire a coach like that, it brings a reset mentality to the organization. Instead, it created this void that allowed Deshaun Watson's ire to start to fill up and grow and ultimately create a rift that feels insurmountable at this point.
It definitely does.
Because what you're talking about, when you don't even respond.
Well,
and he's known Cal McNair, and at least the organization. He's known these people for 4 years now, 5 years now.
Yep.
So it's not like he's ignoring them, and that is the ultimate sign of disrespect to someone who you have a previous relationship with.
I think that's such an important statement. I would rather have somebody snap at me because it shows that they care some level.
Right. Indifference is worse.
Yeah, indifference, apathy, it's the worst emotion for a fan. It's the worst emotion in a relationship, and this is obviously a business relationship, and it's not a good one. So we'll find out, where this goes moving forward. But the J.J. Watt story is interesting. And where is he signed? Probably with Pittsburgh. Probably goes and plays with the family. We'll see. There's going to be some suitors out there. To what extent? I don't know, but Great player, great humanitarian. He's done amazing things for the community and for a lot of people who needed it. So a great career. Now is, shifting to a different organization. You always say nobody loves you like your mama. So the next place he goes, it will not be the same for J.J. Watt, but doesn't change his football legacy. It's a great one, and he's obviously going to wind up in the Hall of Fame. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell to be notified when we drop fresh content.